everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I like to talk about books, and today I'm going to be taking a look back at a video I did a couple months ago where I made 5-star predictions and reacting to those. So this is what I'm calling side B of this first episode of my 5-star predictions. In the first part of this episode, I made my first 5-star predictions. I guessed 5 books that I thought would be 5 stars across different genres. Now I have read all those books and I will let you know if they were 5 stars or if they turned out to disappoint me. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I like to talk about books, and today I'm going to be talking about books that I haven't read yet, but I think when I read them, I'm really gonna like them. So the first book that I have is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Okay, so I was really hyped for this book. It sounded like the perfect combination of all the things I love in a book, and I had really high hopes for it without ever really hearing much about it. From what I know about this book, it is about this cafe, and you can time travel through this cafe, but there are a couple of rules. The main one is you have to return before the coffee gets cold. And I know it follows a couple different people, and that's kind of all I know about it. So I will say that I did enjoy this book a lot. I really liked the concept, and I was a little bit surprised by the writing style. It was a little more dry than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be a little bit more lyrical just because of the way this concept is a little bit more flowery in itself. I just kind of expected the writing to be a little bit more, have a little more oomph to it, I guess, and it was a little dry, but I got used to it pretty quickly. The way this book is set up is there's 4 different stories. So there's one that's like about a mother and a daughter, there's one about sisters, there's one about lovers. I don't remember what the last one is. The book is kind of like evenly split between those 4 stories. When I got started, I thought they were all going to be sort of separate narratives that happen in the cafe, but it turns out they're all intertwined and share some of the same characters going throughout, which I usually really like that aspect of it, but I actually think that kind of held this book back a little bit because it did start to feel a little bit repetitive. I wish it would have been a little different in that aspect. Also, I felt like each story kind of started strong and then it didn't go in a unique place each time. So each story is kind of telling you the same lesson over and over again rather than like showing you different nuances between time travel. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars instead of 5 stars. I don't think I would even say it's an all-time favorite of mine being in the 4-star category. I would recommend it still to people who are interested in sort of time travel stories or anything that's like emotional and heartfelt and moral dilemma type stories. I think this book was first a play, and I do think this story and the way it's written would work really well in theater, maybe not as great in book form. I only can remember 2 other books I put in this 5-star prediction, so the rest of it's kind of going to be a surprise for me. The next is a new book that just came out. It is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. So from what I know about this, it is being marketed as a thriller, and I know it's about gentrification. Okay, so When No One Is Watching, I forgot I put this on this list. This was really hyped up for me because a couple of people were really just saying it was so amazing, so innovative, saying it was one of the best thrillers they've ever read, but also that contingency of like, it's not really a thriller, it's not like your typical thriller. I would classify this book more as a horror, a very slow burn horror book. It is about this community in, I think, Brooklyn, where there's just a lot of gentrification going on and trying to uncover what's going on in their neighborhood, the history of the neighborhood, what the future kind of is. There is a romance aspect in this book as well. I think the idea of this was really good. Great idea. Love the idea. Show-stopping idea. The execution was pretty lackluster in my opinion. I think I gave this 3 stars, maybe 2.5. It got really cheesy really fast. The ending it was not sold by the ending at all, and not cheesy in a good way. Like the book wasn't trying to be cheesy and then all of a sudden it felt really cheesy, which I know Alyssa Cole typically writes romance books, I think historical romance. So this was her first foray into a thriller, horror, anything like a little different from solely focused on the romance part of things. I think she has potential to do this really well. I think it just needs to be more polished. I was pretty let down by it with so many people saying it was so good, so innovative, like Rear Window meets Get Out. This was not Get Out level to me of just like intricacies and complex complex plots and interesting reveals. It kind of reminds me of like Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, how that book sort of takes a turn in the end that you're either gonna love or you're gonna hate. And I really liked Lock Every Door, but I really didn't like the way this ended. Yeah, this was definitely a letdown. And I've heard a couple other people now too start saying this is not great, like it was definitely way overhyped. I think it's just getting hyped for the concept, but the execution, like I said, was a little bit lackluster to me. The next book is a bit of a wild card, and I'm honestly kind of surprised I picked it myself, but I just really do think I'm gonna like this. It's a graphic novel called Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valero O'Connell. Okay, I hated this book. I feel like I've been reading a lot of graphic novels recently that have a really, like, people just love it. They have like a really big fan base and people just really like it, and they just focus on the most toxic relationship and not in a way that I find to be a helpful portrayal of toxic relationships. And I just don't know why everyone's hyping up these books, because this sucked. The relationship in this graphic novel sucked. I hated it so much. So the concept of this, there are these girls in this relationship, and there's Laura Dean, and then there's our main character. Let me check her name. Freddie Riley. So Freddie Riley is dating Laura Dean. Here we have Freddie. Here we have Laura Dean. And Laura Dean keeps breaking up with Freddie. Why? Because Laura Dean just keeps cheating on Freddie and is just so mercurial and is just absolutely the worst. Absolutely the worst. I will say what I did enjoy about this book was the art style. I just really thought it was gorgeously done. But these characters, man, I just could not with them. Honestly, a lot of this has left my head because it has been a while since I read this one. But I remember like Freddie's friend sucking and not being great. Oh no, Freddie was a terrible friend. Freddie was a terrible friend to her friend. She had a friend who, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but she had a friend that something happens to. It is really hard for that friend to be going through that. And she is just like so obsessed with Laura Dean, even though Laura Dean is obsessed with cheating on her, that she is just ignoring her friend. And oh my gosh, this just made me so angry. The whole point of this is not for her to end up with Laura Dean at the end. Like, Laura Dean keeps breaking up with her and she keeps dealing with this toxic relationship. So you would expect that by the end of this, she finds a way to like stand up for herself, end this relationship, move on, realize she deserves better, etc. Which, yeah, that's not a surprise. You would kind of just assume that's what happens. But the way it happens and the final thing that finally convinces her to do that, I thought was so weak. Such a weak thing to use to make her come to that realization. Like, she's got all these friends around her. There's just, you could have used a character, you could have used a different character to really help her see that and like build a stronger character arc. But for so much of this book, I was just suffering having to deal with her being so obsessed with Laura Dean, and I just did not like it. I think I gave this like 2 stars. Really the only thing that saved it was the art style. I mean, the art is just so nice to look at, but I would be fine to let this completely erase from my mind and never think about it again. All right, what do we have next so I can stop thinking about this book? Next, we have another new book that came out this year, and that is The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. I just read Station 11 last month. It is not a 5-star for me, so it might be surprising that I put this on the 5-star rating. But I typically find that if I read a book from an author for the first time and it's like a high 3 or a high 4, when I read the next book that I do of theirs, that'll be like the 5-star, because I've set my expectations correctly and I know what to get into. So I think knowing Emily St. John Mandel's style, I think I'm gonna be able to enjoy this more. Okay, so I wasn't wrong about that. I will say The Glass Hotel did have a very similar style to Station 11 in the way the plot meandered and just the general tone of the book, and how it's not like a straightforward A to B to C story. It's more of just like, yeah, it meanders. It's just kind of like all over the place. Everyone's connected, so you know what you're reading, but yeah, it just kind of wanders around. So just looking at the blurb of this book, it is basically a story about these 2 different events going on. So it says it's an exhilarating novel set at the glittering intersection of 2 seemingly disparate events: a massive Ponzi scheme collapse and the mysterious disappearance of a woman from a ship at sea. And this, I feel like, is a very poor synopsis of the book. I'm gonna go ahead and let you know I didn't like this. I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought the beginning of the book was really strong. The first half, I was like, yeah, okay, I see where we're going, I like it. And then the second half, I was just like, why did we do this? What is happening? What's the point. It feels like we started a lot of things and did not end the stories strong. Those are like the two events that do happen in the beginning. There's this message written on the hotel wall that says you should swallow broken glass or something. And then in the end, you get more into the Ponzi scheme thing that's happening. But the whole Ponzi scheme plot line, I just wish we would have gotten rid of that and just stayed where we were. I don't understand why there are these two disparate events, seemingly disparate according to the synopsis, but to me, they're like pretty disparate. I mean, I understand how they're connected because I read the book. I just don't think it was super strong. And there's just so much time spent on the Ponzi scheme, and all of that was so boring to me. I just don't really care to read about business stuff that's going on. It just was not, I don't know, it like all went over my head. I was just like, why did we put all these things together and call it a story? It just did not add up for me. And I was reading Goodreads reviews, and it seems like a lot of people feel that way too. I think the people who really love it are just like Emily St. John Mandel stans, and then everyone else is just kind of like, I don't know, this was just like a really disjointed story. So yeah, that was a big letdown. But honestly, I probably shouldn't have put this on my 5-star predictions. Like, my thinking was correct. I did know her writing style, and I could bring that expectation with me, so it was less surprising when the plot was meandering that way. I just think Station 11 was so much better. The way it connected and the story it was telling, it felt so much more cohesive in its meandering than this story did. And last but not least, we have The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is another book that has one of those stickers on the cover that just lets you know it's won some kind of award, so it must be something special. I totally forgot that I put this on here. I read this book so long ago. A couple reasons why this book made the list. 1, title. 2, cover. 3, sticker. I'm an easy person to please when it comes to finding books that I want to add to my TBR. Note to future Ashley, don't use that sticker as an indicator of good books. But what really makes me think that I'm gonna really love this book is the actual synopsis of it. I actually have read that for once and know what I'm getting myself into with this one. So for this book, I ended up giving it 4 stars. I did really like it. I thought it was a pretty solid book. This is a book for young readers. I think it's like middle grade. I'm not exactly sure of the specified age range. To me, it felt a little dark and complex for young readers, but I don't associate around young readers. I don't recommend books for young readers, so I don't know. I don't have like a lot of experience to know exactly how dark is like normal for like middle grade books or even the exact target audience of this book. So I wasn't judging it poorly on that. I was just like a little surprised at how like dark and complex it was. It had a lot of richness to the plot that I wasn't expecting. There was complex threads going on. There was a different character, a young boy from the town that had a really significant part of the story as well, and an older woman who had a really significant part of the story too. I think it was very good. It just was like missing something for me. It was missing that last little bit that bumped it up to a 5 stars. To me, there was almost like too many threads going on in the book. I think I just wanted it to be like a little more cutesy. There were some cute moments, like there is this tiny dragon who thinks he's like this big giant dragon, and that everything else is like disproportionate to what it really is. It's just like there were cute moments and there was potential. I just think I expected it to be much more cutesy and whimsical and like a little magic witch discovering her magic powers and like working with the witch and trying to save the witch, and there's gonna be a dragon and it was gonna be really cute. But yeah, it was just darker than I anticipated. That was probably more of an expectations thing. That is why it didn't hit that 5 stars for me. So maybe if I would have heard people talking about it more and known it was gonna be like that, then I would have really loved it. But yeah, ultimately it ended up being just like a solid 4 for me. This first round did not go too well. Looking at all of the books that I put together on this 5-star prediction list, none of them ended up being a 5-star read for me. So we had Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which ended up being a 4-star read for me. When No One Is Watching, which was more of a 2, 2.5 to 3, but really more of just like a 2-star for me. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which apparently I gave a 3-star to, but I remember really actually disliking it a lot, so it's probably more of a 2-star. The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which ended up being a 4-star, and The Glass Hotel, which ended up being a 2.5 star. So my average rating for these 5-star predictions was a 2.9 out of 5. I did horribly. So I'm over 5 this round. Hopefully the next round will go better than this one did. I think I am continuously learning more about my reading tastes and preferences and how to predict a book ahead of time that I'm going to like based off of more things than just a pretty cover or a sticker on the cover. Let me know if any of these surprised you or if any of these books are actually 5-star reads for you. And also let me know if you would be interested in me doing this again, because I think I need to redeem myself and correctly predict at least 1 or 2 5-star books instead of 0. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.